Welcome to the 1000 Nights and 1 Night. Now, when it was the 838th night, she pursued, It hath reached me, O auspicious king, that when Khalifah the fisherman and the Caliph hauled the net ashore, they found it full of fish of all kinds. And Khalifah said to Al-Rashid, By Allah, O piper, thou art foul of favour, but an thou apply thyself to fishing, thou wilt make a mighty fine fisherman. But now 'twere best thou bestraddle thine ass, and make for the market, and fetch me a pair of frails, and I will look after the fish till thou return, when I and thou will load it on thine ass's back. I've scales and weights and all we want, so we can take them with us, and thou wilt have nothing to do but to hold the scales and pouch the price. For here we have fish worth 20 dinars. So be fast with the frails, and loiter not. Answered the Caliph, I hear and I obey. And mounting left him with his fish, and spurred his mule in high good humour, and ceased not laughing over his adventure with the fisherman, till he came up to Ja'afar, who said to him, O Commander of the Faithful, belike when thou wentest down to drink, thou foundest a pleasant flower garden, and enterest and tookest thy pleasure therein alone. At this, Al-Rashid fell a-laughing again at the Barmecides, rose and kissed the ground before him, saying, O Commander of the Faithful, Allah make joy to endure for thee, and do away annoy from thee. And what was the cause of thy delay when thou farest to drink, and what hath befallen thee? Quoth the Caliph, Verily, a right wondrous tale and a joyous adventure, and a wondrous hath fallen me. And he repeated to him what had passed between him and the fisherman, and his words. Thou stolest my clothes, and how he had given him his gown, and how he had cut off a part of it, finding it too long for him. Said Ja'afar, By Allah, O Commander of the Faithful, I had it in mind to beg the gown of thee, but now I will go straightway to the fisherman and buy it off of him. The Caliph replied, By Allah, he hath cut off a third part of the skirt and spoiled it. But, O Ja'afar, I am tired with fishing in the river, for I have caught great store of fish, which I left on the bank with my master Khalifah, and he is watching them and waiting for me to return to him with a couple of frails and a matchet. Then we are to go, I and he, to the market, and sell the fish and share the price. Ja'afar rejoined, O Commander of the Faithful, I will bring you a purchaser for your fish. And Al-Rashid retorted, O Ja'afar, by the virtue of my holy forefathers, whoso bringeth me one of the fish that are before Khalifah, who taught me angling, I will give him a gold dinar. So the crier proclaimed among the troops that they should go forth and buy fish for the Caliph, and they all rose and made for the riverside. Now, when Caliph had expecting the Caliph's return with the two frails, behold, the Mamelukes swooped down upon him like vultures, and took the fish, and wrapped them in gold-embroidered kerchiefs, beating one another in their eagerness to get at the fisherman. Whereupon quoth Khalifah, Doubtless these are the fish of the paradise, and handing two fish in a right hand and a left, plunged into the water up to his neck, and fell a saying, O Allah, by the virtue of these fish, let thy servant, the piper, my partner, come to me at this very moment. And suddenly up to him came a black slave, which was the chief of the Caliph's negro eunuchs. He had tarried behind the rest by reason of his horse having stopped to make water by the way, and finding that naught remained of the fish, little or much, looked right and left, till he espied Khalifah standing in the stream with a fish in either hand, and said to him, Come hither, O fisherman. But Khalifah replied, Begone, and none of your impudence. So the eunuch went up to him and said, Give me the fish, and I will pay thee their price. Replied the fisherman, Art thou little of wit? I will not sell them. Therewith the eunuch drew his mace upon him, and Khalifah cried at him, saying, Strike not, O loon, better largesse than the mace. So saying, he threw the two fish to the eunuch, who took them and laid them in his kerchief. Then he put his hand in his pouch, but found not a single dirham, and said to Khalifah, O fisherman, verily thou art out of luck. By Allah, I have not a silver about me. But come tomorrow to the palace of the Caliphate, and ask for the eunuch Sandal, whereupon the castrados will direct thee to me, and by coming thither thou shalt get what falleth to thy lot, and therewith wend thy ways. Quoth Khalifah, Indeed, this is a blessed day, and its blessedness was manifest from the first of it. Then he shouldered his net and returned to Baghdad, and as he passed through the streets, the folk saw the Caliph's gown on him, and stared at him till he came to the gate of his quarter, by which was the shop of the Caliph's tailor. When the man saw him wearing a dress of the apparel of the Caliph, worth 1,000 dinars, he said to him, "O Khalifah, whence hast thou that gown?" Replied the fisherman, "What aileth thee to be impudent? I had it of one who I taught to fish, and who is to become my apprentice. I forgave him the cutting off of his hand, for that he stole my clothes, and gave me this cape in their place." So the tailor knew that the Caliph had come upon him as he was fishing, and jested with him, and had given him the gown. And Shahrazad perceived the dawn of the day, and ceased saying her permitted say. Now, when it was the 839th night, she resumed, "It hath reached me, O auspicious king, that the Caliph came upon Khalifah the fisherman, and gave him his own gown in jest, wherewith the man fared home. Such was his case, but as regards Harun al-Rashid, he had gone out a-hunting and a-fishing only to divert his thoughts from the damsel Kut al-Kulub. But when Zubaydah heard of her, and of the Caliph's devotion to her, the lady was fired with the jealousy which the more especially fired women, so that she refused meat and drink, and rejected the delights of sleep, and awaited the Caliph's going forth on a journey or what not, that she might set a snare for the damsel. So when she learnt that he was gone hunting and fishing, she bade her women furnish the palace fairly, and decorate it splendidly, and serve up viands and confections, and amongst the rest she made a china dish of the daintiest sweetmeats that can be made, wherein she put bhang. Then she ordered one of her eunuchs to go to the damsel Kut al-Kulub, and bid her to the banquet, saying, "The lady Zubaydah bint al-Qasim, the wife of the commander of the faithful, hath drunken medicine to-day, and having heard tell of the sweetness of thy singing, longeth to divert herself with somewhat of thine art." Kut al-Kulub replied, "Hearing and obedience are due to Allah and the lady Zubaydah," and rose without stay or delay, unknowing what was hidden for her in the secret purpose. Then she took with her what instruments she needed, and accompanying the eunuch, ceased not faring till she came to the presence of the princess. When she entered, she kissed ground before her again, and rising to her feet, said, "Peace be on the lady of the exalted seat, and the presence whereto none may avail, daughter of the house of Abbasaf, and scion of the prophet family. May Allah fulfill thee of peace and prosperity in the days of the years." Then she stood with the rest of the women and eunuchs, and presently the lady Zubaydah raised her eyes, and considered her beauty and loveliness. She saw a damsel with cheeks smooth as rose, and breasts like grandado, a face moonbright, a brow flower white, and great eyes black as night. Her eyelids were languor dight, and her face beamed with light, as if the sun from her forehead arose, and the murks of the night from the locks of her brow, and the fragrance of musk from her breath strayed, and flowers bloomed in her lovely face inlaid. The moon beamed from her forehead, and in slender shape the branches swayed. She was like the full moon, shining in the nightly shade. Her eyes wanton, her eyebrows were like a bow arched, and her lips of coral molded. Her beauty amazed all who espied her, and her glances amazed all who eyed her. Glory be to him who formed her, and fashioned her, and perfected her. Brief, she was, even as saith the poet, as one who favoured her. When she incensed, thou seest folk lie slain, and when she pleased, their souls are quick again. Her eyne are armed with glances magical, wherewith she kills and quickens as she feigns. The world she leadeth captive with her eyes, as though the wolds were all her slavish train. Quoth the lady Zubaydah, welcome, and fair cheer to thee, O Kut al-Kulub. Sit and divert us with thine art and goodliness of thine accomplishments. Quoth the damsel, I hear and I obey, and putting out her hand, took the tambourine, whereof one of her praisers speaketh in the following verses. Ho thou, O the tabard, my heart takes flight, and love smit cries while thy fingers smite. Thou takest not but a wounded heart, the while for acceptance longs the white. So say thou word or heavy or light, play whate'er thou please, it will charm the sprite. Sois born, unveil thy cheek, ma belle, rise, deftly dance, and all hearts delight. Then she smote the tambourine briskly, and so sang thereto that she stopped the birds in the sky, and the place danced with them blithely, after which she laid down the tambourine and took the pipe, wherewith it is said, she hath eyes, whose babes with their fingers sign to sweet tunes with a discordant line. And as the poet also said in this couplet, and when she announced the will to sing for union joy, 'tis a time divine. Then she laid down the pipe she had charmed therewith all who were present, and took up the lute, whereof saith the poet, how many a blooming bough in glee girl's hand is fain, as lute to which great souls by charms of cunning strain. She sweeps tormenting lute strings by her artful touch, with fingertips that surely chain with endless chain. Then she tightened its pegs, and tuned its strings, and laying it in her lap, bended over it as mother bendeth over child. And it seemed as if it were of her and her lute that the poet spoke these couplets. Sweetly discourses she on the Persian string, and unintelligence makes understand, and teaches she that loves a murther, who oft the reasoning Moslem hath unmanned. A maid, by Allah, in whose palm a thing of painted wood like mouth can speak commands. With lute she staunch its flow of love, and so stops flow of blood the cunning leech's hand. Then she preluded in 14 different modes, and sang to the lute an entire piece, so as to confound the gazers and delight her hearers. After which she recited these 2 couplets. The coming unto thee is blessed, therein new joys for eye attend. Its blisses are continuous, its blessings never end. And Shahrazad perceived the dawn of the day, and ceased to say her permitted say. Now, when it was the 840th night, she said, it hath reached me, O auspicious king, that the maiden Kut al Kulub, after singing these songs, and sweeping the strings in presence of the Lady Zubaydah, rose and exhibited tricks of sleight of hand, and legerdemain, and all manner of pleasing arts, till the princess came near to fall in love with her, and said to herself, verily my cousin Al-Rashid is not to blame for loving her. Then the damsel kissed ground before Zubaydah, and sat down, whereupon they set food before her. Presently they brought her the drugged dish of sweetmeats, and she ate thereof, and hardly had it settled in her stomach, when her head fell backwards, and she sank on the ground, sleeping. With this the lady said to her women, carry her up to one of the chambers till I summon her. And they replied, we hear and we obey. Then said she to one of her eunuchs, fashion me a chest, and bring it hitherto to me. And shortly afterwards she bade make the semblance of a tomb, and spread the report that Kut al Kulub had choked and died, threatening her familiars that she would smite the neck of whoever should say she is alive. Now behold, the Caliph suddenly returned from the chase, and the first inquiry he made was for the damsel. So there came to him one of his eunuchs, whom the Lady Zubaydah had charged to declare that she was dead, if the Caliph should ask, and kissing the ground before him, said, may thy head live, O my lord. Be certified that Kut al Kulub choking and eating and is dead. Whereupon cried Al-Rashid, God never gladden thee with good news, O thou bad slave. And they entered the palace, where he heard of her death from everyone, and asked, where is her tomb? So they brought him to the sepulchre, and showed him the pretended tomb, saying, this is her burial place. When he saw it, he cried out, and wept, and embraced it, quoting these 2 couplets. By Allah, O tomb, have her beauty ceased, and disappeared from sight? And is the countenance changed and wan that shone so wonder bright? O tomb, thou art neither heaven nor garden. Verily, how comes it then that swaying branch and moon in thee unite? The Caliph, weeping sore for her, abode by the tomb a full hour, after which he arose and went away in the utmost distress and the deepest melancholy. So the Lady Zubaydah saw that her plot had succeeded, and forthright sent for the eunuch, and said, hither with the chest. he set it before her when she bade bring the damsel, and locking her up there, and said to the eunuch, Take all pains to sell this chest, and make it a condition with the purchaser that he buy it locked, then giving alms with its price. So he took it, and went forth to do her bidding. Thus fared it with them. But as for Khalifah the fisherman, when morning morrowed, and shone with its light and sheen, he said to himself, I cannot do aught better today than visit that eunuch who bought the fish of me, for he appointed me to come to him to the palace of the Caliphate. So he went forth of his lodging, intending for the palace, and when he came hither, he found Mamelukes, negro slaves, and eunuchs standing and sitting and looking at them. Behold, seated amongst them was the eunuch who had taken the fish of him, with the white slaves waiting on him. Presently, one of the Mameluke lads called out to him, whereupon the eunuch turned to see who he was, and lo, it was the fisherman. Now when Khalifah was ware that he saw him, and recognized him, he said to him, I have not failed thee, O my little tulip. On this wise are men of their word. Hearing his address, Sandal the eunuch laughed and replied, By Allah, thou art right, O fisherman, and put his hand to his pouch and gave him somewhat. But at that moment there arose a great clamor. So he raised his head to see what was to do, and finding that it was the Wazir Jafar, the Barmecide, coming forth from the Caliph's presence, he rose to him, and forewent him, and they walked about, conversing for a longsome time. Khalifah the fisherman waited a while, then, growing weary of standing, and finding that the eunuch took no heed of him, he set himself in his way, and beckoned to him from afar, saying, O my lord Tulip, give me my due, and let me go. The eunuch heard him, but was ashamed to answer him because of the minister's presence. So he went on talking with Jafar, and took no notice whatever of the fisherman. Whereupon quoth Khalifah, O slow o pay, may Allah put on shame on curls, and all who take folks' goods, and are niggardly with them. I put myself under thy protection, O my lord Branbelly, to give me my due, and let me go. The eunuch heard him, but was ashamed to answer him before Jafar. And the minister saw the fisherman beckoning and talking to him, though he knew not what he was saying. So he said to Sandal, misliking his behavior, O eunuch, what would yonder beggar with thee? Sandal replied, Dost thou not know him, O my lord the Wazir? And Jafar answered, By Allah, I know him not. How should I know a man I have never seen but at this moment? Rejoined the eunuch, O my lord, this is the fisherman whose fish we seized on the banks of the Tigris. I came too late to get any, and was ashamed to return to the prince of the true believers empty-handed, when all the Mamelukes had some. Presently I spied the fisherman standing in midstream, calling on Allah with 4 fish in his hands, and said to him, Give me what thou hast there, and take thy worth. He handed me the fish, and I put my hand in my pocket, proposing to gift him with somewhat, but found naught therein, and said, Come to me in the palace, and I will give thee wherewithal to aid thee in thy poverty. So he came to me today, and I was putting hand in my pouch that I might give him somewhat when thou camest forth, and I rose to wait on thee, and was diverted from him, till he grew tired of waiting. And this is the whole story, how he cometh to be standing here. And Shahrazad perceived the dawn of the day, and ceased to say her permitted say. Now, when it was the 841st night, she continued, It hath reached me, O auspicious king, that when Sandal the eunuch related to Jafar the Barmecide the tale of Khalifah the fisherman, ending with, This is the whole story, and how he cometh to be standing here. And the Wazir, hearing this account, smiled, and said, O eunuch, how is it that this fisherman cometh in his hour of need, and thou satisfy him not? Dost thou not know him, O chief of the eunuchs? No, answered Sandal. Jafar said, This is the master of the commander of the faithful, and his partner, and our lord the Caliph hath arisen this morning straight of breast, heavy of heart, and troubled in thought, nor is there aught will broaden his breast, save this fisherman. So let him not go till I crave the Caliph's pleasure concerning him, and bring him before him. Perchance Allah will relieve him of his oppression, and console him for the loss of Kut al-Kulub by means of the fisherman's presence, and he will give him wherewithal to better himself, and thou wilt be the cause of this. Replied Sandal, O my lord, do as thou wilt, and may Allah Almighty long continue thee a pillar of the dynasty of the Commander of the Faithful, whose shadow Allah perpetuate, and prosper it root and branch. Then the Wazir Jafar rose up and went to the Caliph, and Sandal ordered the Mamelukes not to leave the fisherman, whereupon Khalifah cried, How goodly is thy bounty, O Tulip! The seeker has become the sought. I come to seek my due, and they imprison me for the debts and arrears. When Jafar came into the presence of the Caliph, he found him sitting with his head bowed earthwards, breast straightened, and mind melancholy, humming the verses of the poet. My blamers, instant bid that I for her become consoled, but I, what can I do, whose heart declines to be controlled? And how can I in patience bear the loss of lovely maid, when fails me patience for a love that holds with firmest hold? Nay, I'll forget her not, nor the bowl that twixt us both went round, and wine of glances maddened me with drunkenness ensouled. When as Jafar stood in the presence, he said, Peace be unto thee, O Commander of the Faithful, defender of the honor of the faith, and descendant of the uncle of the Prince of the Apostles, Allah. Assain him, and save him and his family one and all. The Caliph raised his head and answered, And on thee be peace, with the mercy of Allah and his blessings. Quoth Jafar, With leave of the Prince of the True Believers, his servant would speak without restraint. Asked the Caliph, And when was restraint put upon thee in speech, and thou the Prince of Wazirs? Say what thou wilt. Answered Jafar, When I went out, O my lord, from before thee, intending for my house, I saw standing at the door thy master and teacher and partner, Khalifah the Fisherman, who was aggrieved at thee, and complained of thee, saying, Glory be to God! I taught him to fish, and he went away to fetch me a pair of frails, but never came back. And this is not the way of a good partner, or of a good apprentice. So if thou hast a mind to partnership, well and good, and if not, tell him that he may take a partner another. Now when the Caliph heard these words, he smiled, and his straightness of breast was done away with, and he said, My life on thee, is this the truth thou sayest the fisherman standeth at the door? The Jafar replied, By thy life, O Commander of the Faithful, he standeth at the door. Quoth the Caliph, O Jafar, by Allah, I will assuredly do my best to give him his due. If Allah at my hands sent him misery, he shall have it, and if prosperity, he shall have it. Then he took a piece of paper, and cutting it in pieces, said to the Wazir, O Jafar, write down with thine own hand 20 sums of money from 1 dinar to 1,000, and the names of all kinds of offices and dignities, from the least appointment to the Caliphate. Also 20 kinds of punishment, from the lightest beating to death. I hear and I obey, O Commander of the Faithful, answered Jafar, and he did as he was bidden. Then said the Caliph, O Jafar, I swear by my holy forefathers and by my kinship to Hamza and Akil that I mean to summon the fisherman, and bid him take one of these papers, whose contents none knoweth save thou and I. And whatsoever is written in the paper which he shall choose, I will give to him. Though it be the Caliphate, I will divest myself thereof, and invest him therewith, grudge it not to him. And on the other hand, if there be written therein hanging or mutilation or death, I will execute it upon him. Now go and fetch him to me. When Jafar heard this, he said to himself, There is no majesty, and there is no might, save in Allah the glorious, the great. And maybe somewhat with fall to this poor wretch's lot, that will bring about his destruction, and I shall be the cause. But the Caliph hath sworn, so nothing remains now but to bring him in, and naught will happen save whatso Allah willeth. Accordingly he went out to Khalifah the Fisherman, and laid hold of his hand to carry him to the Caliph, whereupon his reason fled, and he said in himself, What a stupid I was to come after yonder ill-omened slave, Tulip, whereby he hath brought me in company with Bran-belly. Jafar fared on with him, with Mamelukes before and behind, whilst he said, Doth not a rest suffice? But these must go behind and before me to hinder my making off. Till they had traversed 7 vestibules, when the Wazir said to him, Mark my words, O fisherman, thou standest before the Commander of the Faithful and the Defender of the Faith. Then he raised the great curtain, and Khalifah's eyes fell on the Caliph, who was seated on his couch, with the lords of the realm standing in attendance upon him. As soon as he knew him, he went up to him and said, Welcome and welcome to thee, O piper. 'Twas not right of thee to make thyself a fisherman and go away, leaving me sitting to guard the fish and never to return. For before I was aware, there came up Mamelukes on beasts of all manner colours, and snatched away the fish from me, I standing alone. And this was all thy fault, for hadst thou returned with the frails forthright, we had sold 100 dinars worth of fish. And now I come to seek my due, and they have arrested me. But thou, who hath imprisoned thee also in this place? The Caliph smiled, and raising a corner of the curtain, put forth his head and said to the fisherman, Come hither, and take thee one of these papers. Quoth Khalifah the fisherman, Yesterday thou wast a fisherman, and to-day thou hast become an astrologer. But the more trades a man hath, the poorer he waxeth. Thereupon Ja'afar said, Take the paper at once, and do as the commander of the faithful biddeth thee without prating. So he came forth, and he put his hand forth, saying, Far be it from me that this piper should ever again be my knave and fish with me. Then taking the paper, he handed to the Caliph, saying, O piper, what hath come out for me therein? Hide not therefore. And Shahrazad perceived the dawn of the day, and ceased to say her permitted say. And so do I cease my telling of this tale, till it be morrow.